And we're back.
Just to kind of ask a few questions. I know I don't know if my assistant sent you anything before the meetings. They did not send me anything. So
I don't think
I've
so.
read your book. What do you want to focus on, do you think?
I have no focus ever. Like I've probably done 100 podcast interviews and it's just start
Yeah.
winging stuff at me and I'm fine.
Totally. So I'm just going to start it off with kind of asking, tell us about yourself, tell us about your mission, your journey. I mean, you and I met, you're incredible. I've read your book numerous times. What gave you the inspiration to write the book, and just give us some information. So I think I love winging it. I'm one of those. So I'm totally
It
there
always
with you.
turns out better when you
It does, always. All right. So super excited to have you on the show, Rodric. You've been someone who has kind of touched my heart. I've met you a couple of times now at Books and Business. I met Amber Vilhauer last year through Justin Donald and a huge group of individuals that were and are just phenomenal. But I think your conversation with me was intense. And I've read your book, $1 Million Flip Flops, numerous times. I go back and I keep scribbling in it. It's probably one of the most intense, realistic books that I've read, because my mind just keeps going back over so many different thoughts and values. So glad to talk to you and just really connect in such a better way. So tell the audience a little bit about you and just kind of what your mission and who you are.
Yeah, start with the small questions, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Rodric Lenhart. I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. I grew up in a family without much money, and I figured out at a really young age that if I was gonna get new sneakers, or I was gonna order a pizza, or if I wanted a bike or a Nintendo or those things, I was gonna have to figure out a way to get it because mom and dad weren't getting. So I was that kid, getting golf balls down to the public course and selling them back to the golfers when I was just 5, 6, 7 years old. I would do every candy drive at school, just any way, mow lawns, anything I could do to make a couple bucks, and figured out early that, I never wanted someone else to tell me my value. I wanted to be able to put in as much effort as I needed to get what I want. And I think that lesson, while I didn't realize I was learning it at the time, is ultimately what propelled me into entrepreneurship, and what has kept me, other than a brief 3-year stint in corporate America that literally almost killed me, has kept me as a business owner for, gosh, 40 years now. So fast forward through high school and college, I had several businesses. I graduated UT's Entrepreneurship Family and Small Business Program. I was the first graduate from that. And I distinctly remember listening to professors tell me about what it's going to be like to run a business while I'm running 2 businesses, and can't wait to get out of class and just go do my thing, right? And shortly after school, moved down to Charleston, South Carolina. I grew up in Michigan, and the Carolinas is really where I kind of staked my claim. I had a 20-ish year career in real estate and development and construction, and couple years ago sold my business and could do anything I wanted. And you heard me say often to friends, I don't know what chapter 2 is going to look like, but I know I can't see it while I'm in chapter 1. And I could never manage to get myself that sabbatical. And the program, like when I do coaching programs with people, most of them start on this 6-week cycle, which is called the phoneless vacation. And because as a business owner, if you can leave your phone at home for 2 weeks and you come home to a good business, that means it's a healthy business. And it's a symptom of so many other things that are going right if you're able to do that. So sold the business and was sitting on a beach in Thailand drinking my 14,000th mango smoothie of the day, and I look over at Nicole and I'm like, we got to give it all away. And she's just, what? She has no idea that my entrepreneurial mind had been spinning for the last 6 months. And that was really the day that $1 Million Flip Flops was born. That's the day we came up with the title for everything. It's the day the foundation was born. There was a lot of bornness. Is that a word? That day. So that's what turned into the book, turned into everything else we're doing now.
I love it. So I think first and foremost, I love your ability to just be so honest about it and not really knowing where it's going, but you couldn't think of chapter 2 still being in, chapter 1. And I think so many people can relate to that and maybe be like, oh, I have been stuck there. And how do I get forward? And I'm not hitting you. Your book helps everyone move through those processes so seamlessly. And I shouldn't say it's easy. It takes work. It takes your dedication, determination, getting into a quiet place and being able to be like, I'm going to be honest with myself in what this looks like and what I need to do. But if you are ready to make that change, this book is what you need to invest in, and definitely looking into your programs and what you do, Rodric, because I think it's so impactful. So give us just a little bit of background in, so the day that you decided to write the book was pretty monumental. And then your book is quite powerful in so many different ways. It sounds like it's just your life kind of, but give us a little bit more color around it, because one of my favorite things is, what if my whole life has been wrong in the introduction? And I remember my heart just beating so fast going, I know what he feels. I get him. And so the whole book was just this cool book of my emotions, but just kind of walk us through that. And that statement specifically just draws me right in.
Yeah, and so that's from The Death of Ivan Ilyich, which is a Tolstoy book that I read in my early 20s. And Ivan, the main character, is on his deathbed and he looks up at his wife and he just says, "What if my whole life was wrong?" And I don't think a day has gone by that I haven't thought about that. And I had shut down two of my businesses and I went into I call it semi corporate America, because I was selling new homes for a Fortune 100 builder. I was 24 years old, making more in a month than my parents made in a year. And I could buy anything I want, do anything I want, go anywhere I want. And I was absolutely miserable. And I woke up every day anxious and depressed and at times suicidal thoughts. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with me? I've got all the things. I've got everything everyone told me would be successful and would make me happy and all these things. And I was fortunate to get it at a really young age. And I think that's when you hear midlife crisis, it's because people are 40 and 50 when they finally get there, quote unquote there, and they're like, is this all there is? And I was at that point and I realized, I used the term right map, wrong mountain. I was given the map and I followed the map and I did the things and I got to the top of the mountain and it was the wrong effing mountain. And I'm giving a keynote, a commencement address in New York in a month. And that's basically I get 12 minutes, but it's 1,800 people. And it's right
Mm.
map, wrong mountain, because these kids that are graduating, like, they're starting on that mountain now. And there's these pivotal times in your life. The subtitle of the book. So the book's $1 Million Flip Flops: Peace, Prosperity, and the Courage to Change Course in Life and Business. And I believe, and we talked about it in the first half of the show when I was interviewing you, you can make a change at any time.
Mhm.
I don't think that there has to be a certain series of events that happen for you to be able to make a change. Most true change happens in an instant. But there's times in our lives where it's decidedly easy. When you graduate high school, when you graduate college, before you're married, before it's just easier. It doesn't mean it's not possible. It's always possible. But
Poured into this beautiful book.
and that's really what I want to impart on these kids, is to make sure that they're not following a map that was given to them by their parents, specifically
Mhm.
by their pastor, by their partner, by their teachers, but it's their map. And
Yeah.
they have the tools to understand how to figure out what is the right map and who's really on their side. And we touched on that when we were talking just a little bit too. But I talk a lot about cheerleaders versus supporters. And I think when you can find that core group of people, I see if anybody follows Alex Hormozy, I see his stuff, quotes it a lot. But it's like, the people ahead of you are never ridiculed. The people ahead of you are never telling you to stop. It's the
Mhm.
ones that are afraid they're going to be left behind that hold you back.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
quicker you can identify that, I think the better off we all.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's so imperative for people to understand that they need to follow their own map. You hear those stories, I'm sure you do. I'm sure everybody else does out there, of just, my parents want me to do this, or I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to go to college. I'm supposed to do this. We don't have the ability to really think on our own a lot about what we want to do. But then you all of a sudden wake up in the middle of your life at whatever age and go, what was it all for? Who am I? What is my identity? Like, where am I supposed to be? And I think, time is ticking. You hear that clock just ticking, ticking, ticking. Well, I don't have the time to figure out who I am. I have this job and I have to make money and I have to pay the bills. And oh my goodness, materialistic just meltdown. And I know I had that materialistic meltdown. Wow. Yeah, this is huge. So keep going, keep telling us kind of where this is going. I mean, your life is evolving, everybody else is evolving. This is, yeah, super, super cool. Keep kind of just digging in a little bit deeper and kind of what this means, because you're onto something truly life changing.
I think, Amy, we're specifically for these kids that are coming out of high school, that I keep thinking about this commencement address because it's 30 days away now. But we're at a time in history. I started my first business 25 years ago, 26 years ago, something. And first real business, right? Like, they had an
Mhm,
LLC and yeah, and the
mhm.
whole deal. But where you have both the decentralization of education and you have the democratization of business building. And it's, a 19-year-old can sell their knowledge online tomorrow and make money. And it's more accepted. Think how many things you learn in a year from strangers on YouTube.
Yeah.
You're not buying the manual, you're not going to the course at the community college, you'll learn it on YouTube.
Hmm.
And I think that alone presents such an opportunity for people that are willing to take that step. And I very much live what I write in the book. I tell people when I sit down with a coaching client, what do you want your life to look like? What do you want
Hmm.
to do Monday through Sunday? Like, what
Yeah.
does that look like? And now let's work backwards and build a business that fits that life. I've been to 60 countries now on 6 continents. We're finally booking frickin' Antarctica, which COVID killed for me. But I wanted to have
Hmm.
seven continents and all the baseball parks by the time I was 40, and I would have done so. I give a little asterisk next to my record. But at any rate, I did all that traveling while I was running these businesses. It wasn't like I retired and then I saw the world. I saw the world and then I ran a business. And you can do, and the people that come to work with me are typically looking to buy their time back. They want to be at their kids' t-ball game. They want to be present at dinner. They want to take that phoneless vacation. And just with my business experience, I'm able to, it's one of those things like you open up the curtain and they're like, well, shit, this was possible the whole time. They just
Yes.
didn't, they just
Hmm.
couldn't see it because we're not taught to think that way. Where we were, most of us, certainly our generation was brought up in the, you run the press at the factory and then you get your watch and then you retire and then you
Yep.
die 6 years later. What a
Hmm.
life,
Hmm.
and that's what I didn't want for people. And ultimately that's why I wrote the book. It was, if I could help one person, and even if that one person was myself through the cathartic process of writing $1 Million Flip Flop, then it was worth it. And we were fortunate. We hit number one, 7 categories on launch and bestseller and best new release. And every day a couple people buy from somewhere in the world. Like I can see my little bookshelf on Amazon, which is cool to watch. But it's been a lot of fun, and I do all of this because I love it. We donate 100% of everything we do. I don't do this to make money or to make my house payment. This is my kind of second half legacy work. So all the book sales, the journal, courses, anything you do with us, it all goes to the foundation.
That is fantastic. I think that's such a wonderful thing for people to know. I think we're losing track of, what it means to give back and do for others, but also just to do for ourselves. And I think, you mentioned something that jumps out in me is, I don't think we're most scared of what we can't do. I think we're most scared of what we can do and what we are capable of. And I think that that is such a huge thing that holds people back. And I think that your book really allows people to dig in so much more in finding themselves and who they are, and really just finding that identity, and not finding who they were, but finding who they are, who they want to be. Because I mean, I can honestly say, and you probably feel the same, is at every turn, no matter, what age it is, but what things we go through in life is just throwing us those opportunities, not obstacles, but opportunities to be that person. And we just need to grab them and be able to take them. So what additional advice would you give? I think people at any age, I'm kind of like struggling to find, like, if you have like that certain person that you're targeting, but it sounds like you have so many different individuals. But I love the younger individuals that have the ability to find themselves right now, because I think more and more we're really being just programmed to go to college. This is what it is. Do what somebody tells you to do. Don't learn how to think, just, learn what to think. And I think for those that really want to step out, what additional advice, can you give them, or are you giving them? I don't know if those are your clients, or your clients are more probably into their career perhaps, and maybe kind of reevaluating and kind of maybe taking that step left if they've always gone right, perhaps.
Yeah, my clients are typically, I work with a lot of home builders, custom home builders, because that was what I did for a
Yeah.
lot of years. So I understand their language, but the principles are the same. Just the
Hmm.
lingo is better because I know what they're doing every day, right?
Hmm.
But my clients right now range from a musician in Denmark to a real estate person in Florida to I'm onboarding a new builder in Salt Lake City on tomorrow. I'm flying out to Salt Lake City tomorrow. So, the principles are all the same. And I think the biggest thing is just understanding why. I talk about in the book the waves method. You know, the W is your why, and we hear a lot about your why. Simon Sinek, blah blah blah. We hear about your why a lot, but it's, you know, why are you doing what you're doing every day, and it can't involve money, power, or notoriety. You know, when I throw those three things in, you sometimes you get a blank stare from people, and those are the people. If you don't answer that question now, they're the ones that are going to say, "What if my whole life was wrong?" later. And I think the earlier we can teach people that. And what's kind of cool is, you know, I would say my average client is probably, you know, they're typically an already successful business, but they've built themselves a job. They're not necessarily that
Mhm,
they can't leave. You know, they just have
mhm,
they have a job in their own company. That's what I don't want. So they're usually, you know, 30s, 40s, 50. But with the foundation, our kids are and they go through, when they apply for the grant for their trip, they go through this whole entrepreneurial journey with us. And we're just now in the middle of building that. We're partnering with EF Tours, which is an absolutely amazing company, $7 billion company, 70,000 employees, and you would never know it. Like, they have been just unbelievably gracious and open with building this with us. But they apply and they build a business plan, and they start to think about these things, about their purpose, not just their mission statement for their business, but their personal mission statement, which is what the S is in the waves method in the book, you know, your statement of purpose. And if you buy the journal, like if you get the journal that goes along with the book, it's every evening and every morning there's a new thing, but you're constantly rewriting your statement of purpose. It's not one thing that you do and then you're good for 50 years. It
mhm.
changes, it evolves with you as you learn and you grow. And I think if people can, I have this thing, I'll leave it with this. I call it the 2244. And if anytime you look at the clock, it's on 22 or 44, you ask yourself, is what am I doing right now getting me further from or closer to my goal? First, you have to know what that goal is and why you want it. And then two, you have to constantly be checking in with yourself. And, you know, in my coaching work, we do everything in 6 week cycles. So I build these 6 week triangles for people, and we identify your three biggest blocks and we try to knock those out in 6 weeks. And the 2244 rule comes in extremely handy, right? Because it might be 11:44 at night. You might be watching Netflix. It might be 10:44 in the morning and you're eating a triple cheeseburger. You know, is what am I doing right now in this moment when you see the clock? You know, so I think if you can make those micro adjustments as you go, and you can surround yourself with people they truly have your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
And I write in the book, you know, it's not always your friends and family. They're usually the ones that hold you back, and there's a variety of reasons for that.
Mhm.
But if you can do those two things, I think you set yourself up for luck and success.
I love it. I think it's huge. And I just want to, reiterate, the people that you surround yourself with are the most important, no matter what you're going through. Great. If times are wonderful, great. Everybody's having a good time. It's those times that, you need to really kind of think about, who's there for you, who's keeping you accountable in the right ways, not to go out and mess around and talk about just nothing. Not that that's a bad thing, not to have friends that you can just go out and talk about just nothing. But I think that there has to be more substance in those relationships, and I think nowadays we are losing that. I know with my kids, my son is almost 17, my daughter's almost 14. We're losing that because of social media, and they don't know how to have conversations, and they text everything, or it's online, or they never want to leave their rooms to go do things and have experiences. And it's very difficult. But to have those individuals that hold you accountable, and like in my community that I'm creating, it's just, I needed something so much more powerful of just those people around me that weren't afraid to tell their stories, talk about things, talk about where they wanted to go, talk about, just everything. And nobody was judgmental. Everybody wanted the best for everybody in the group. I needed something like that. And so I think for anybody out there, it's who you hang out with, who you surround yourself with, you will be. I mean, look at them, look at their life, look at what they're doing. It's honestly what it is. Tribe of Millionaires is one of my favorite kind of just no-brainer books that I go back to. And I tell my husband all the time, I'm like, you just got to read it. It's such a good book. And it's all about that, who you're hanging out with, who you're spending your time with, and just really kind of digging deep and thinking about that. So I think that that's huge. Anything else? Any last things that you can kind of leave us with? Any like major challenges that you faced that, really kind of were pivotal for you, or something that you maybe wouldn't do again, perhaps?
I don't even know if I could answer that.
Might
And
have been a trick question for you.
we went from any last tidbits to any major challenges that you might went through.
I like the challenges because everybody, usually wants to know, but sometimes it can be a catch question.
It's something I've probably never said on a show or being interviewed is, as a salesperson, I'm probably thinking of this because you're in sales, but as a salesperson, you have to be really careful not to sell yourself. Like
Mhm.
I'm really good at selling myself on bad ideas. And I think if you can be mindful of that, and again, keep going back to it, that's where that tribe, your 5 people
Yeah.
that you can take these things to, they're gonna go, that's dumb. But
Mhm.
constructively is why it's so important. So I'm gonna leave you with a quote, and I have it tattooed on my arm. It's been on every social media page I've ever had, back to MySpace, and it's a Thoreau quote, and it's, the cost of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it.
I actually wrote that down when I heard it or read it, and I wrote it down in several different places. I wrote it on a sticky note. I put it on my mirror. I cannot believe you just said that, because that just stuck with me more than anything did. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because that's huge.
If you can
It is
think
huge. And
if you
we
can think
all
in
think
terms of
about
that,
that.
you're on the right path.
Yeah, I think that's great. Rodric, I love it. This is fantastic. I think for anybody, grab the book, look you up, check out your coaching, but where can people find you, follow you, and reach out to you?
Super easy at Million Dollar Flip Flops on every channel, milliondollarflipflops.com. Just Rodric Lenhart on LinkedIn. I'm not a big LinkedIn guy, but I'm on there. The foundation is sendastudentleaderabroad.org, or SASLA, not salsa, SASLA.org.
Wonderful. All right, that's great. This is fantastic. I mean, everything has been wonderful. I'm so glad to have been able to connect with you and just really dig a little deeper. I think we can maybe have something here in the future to see what is next, because I think that you're one of those that just we can't get enough of. So thank you so much for, chatting with me. I love it. I appreciate you. I'm so glad to have met you. And you're just one of those that it's just, you're infectious. I really love it. And your book is, once again, I can't get enough of it because I keep going back to it. So Rodric, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Amy. This was a ton of fun.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Advocacy and Hope podcast with host Amy Post. Please check out the show notes for all of the guests' bios and information and links to follow to learn more even after the episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes, and please share it out to those who need to hear this inspiring message. You can subscribe, rate, and review all of this on your favorite podcast platform, and we sincerely thank you for spending some time with us today.